Hey guys, welcome back for more Selene. Let's continue, shall we? Hope looked up her magazine and leaned over the armrest.
You had a call from the agency?
Ethan just got back from the shower. He froze in place, clutching the towel at his waist. Something cold stirred uncomfortably in his stomach. The project. He had completely forgotten about the agency project, and it had been more than 2 weeks. The deadline was very close now. He started for the phone, but Hope just waved her hand lazily.
Don't worry, I picked it.
What did you tell them?
I told them you'd stop eating, sleeping, and loving anything other than work, so they'll get those files all nice and shiny. Pretty accurate, huh?
Yeah. Just don't pick up my phone again, okay? Hope shrugged.
Sure. I mean, it was you who asked me to answer the calls in the first place.
Yes, I know. When I started working for them, it was important to let them see I am always in touch. Now that I've passed the probation period, there's no need for piling this on you any longer. Thank you for covering for me.
No problem. If you're getting a call, and I'm not too lazy to go pick it up, I can watch your back.
No, you really shouldn't. This project is complicated. I'd rather deal with it myself. Ethan sat rigid. He'd never considered himself a good liar, but Hope didn't seem to notice anything. She sighed, pretending to be upset, and rolled her eyes.
Well now, guess I'm being fired from an unpaid security position without any honors or compensation. Capitalism sucks.
Ethan leaned over, tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear, and looked into her eyes. His hand remained on Hope's cheek. Your help is very important to me. Hope's hand went over his, and she closed her eyes.
I know.
I couldn't have done it without you.
What else is new?
They kissed. When Hope pulled away, she looked pleased, a sly smile on her lips. Are we still going to the store?
I'm not sure.
They reached for each other again, but the phone gave a shrill ring. After the phone call this morning, Ethan turned the silent mode off. Oh well. My city needs me. Ethan briefly pressed his lips to her forehead. Hope sighed and slapped his ass.
If God existed, he'd really want us to buy some zucchinis. I'll go and get dressed.
The call was from the agency. They needed more details and dates. Ethan went out into the hallway and tried to make it sound as plausible as he could. Yes, he understood that the deadline is very close. No, there were no serious hitches for the work. Yes, he will send everything over. When the call finally ended, Ethan's neck and face were flushed by this time. He was a lousy liar after all. Ethan had to catch his breath. When he turned to the room, Hope was reaching for his laptop. What are you doing? Hope glanced at him over the shoulder. This time she looked surprised.
Nothing special, really. I just wanted to print out some discount coupons. What about it?
Ethan left a bunch of file and tabs open. They had nothing to do with the agency project, and he didn't want Hope to see them. After all, she did know enough about his project to serve as some sort of secretary. About all the projects, except for the one that Ethan shouldn't have taken because it wasn't paid for. Maybe his fears were irrational. Maybe Hope wouldn't blame him. But Ethan felt ashamed, and he didn't want to take any chances after what happened this morning. I have lots of unsafe files in there. Some important information might get lost. Can I print those coupons myself? Ethan felt the heat rise again in his neck and cheeks. Hope stared at him for a few seconds. Ethan couldn't read the expression on her face, and that creeped him out. He was ready to hear a reproach. He even agreed with them in his mind, but Hope simply walked away.
Sure. I'll send them to your mail.
They spent most of the way to the store in intense silence. A few times Ethan asked something just to make sure Hope was still talking to him. Hope was, though the answers were dry and she never attempted to make a joke. It's not that bad, Ethan told himself. It's not that bad at all if you repeat it again and again and you can buy a little time, but in the end, the anxiety will prevail. It always does. Ethan's mind quickly figured out that the owner was trying to trick it and spat out the chewing gum. At the moment, Ethan got caught in an avalanche of thoughts he didn't want to deal with and couldn't in his current state. Something had to be done, to be said. But what? Maybe he should actually do something after all? Ethan imagined touching Hope's fingers, and then he immediately saw her pulling a hand back, her eyes glistening, how she opens her mouth to ask the question Ethan had no answers to. They'd have to talk, one way or another. Ethan didn't know where to start without burying himself even deeper. He had been thinking about it the whole way, but never came up with anything. The huge supermarket on the next block, a place they had long dubbed the store, was bustling with life despite the rather late hours. As soon as they entered the large glass doors, the tension began to come off on its own. The carts were scarce, but Ethan got them in exchange for a coupon. Hope gave him a thumbs up with the not bad at all expression on her face. Hope enthusiastically presented a huge, colorful, utterly ludicrous mug, and Ethan immediately agreed they had to buy it. They tried to find a pair for the mug, but a brooding supermarket employee said it was the last one. They were a little disappointed, but well, at least that was something. Looking for the mug was one thing that finally did the trick. They were huddled together looking for their favorite treats and arguing about which breakfast cereals are the best. That's how it was until they reached the meat department. I'll go pick something out before it all clears. Hope nodded absently. She was stuck at one of the big fridges in the middle of the hall.
Okay. I'll be waiting for you here.
The meat shelves were half empty as usual at this hour. Ethan was hoping to find a steak or some minced meat. However, he soon forgot about both. There was a girl standing by one of the shelves. Ethan couldn't see her face, only her pale back under the white dress with thin straps, and also her disheveled black hair. Ethan's cheeks was stung with cold, as if his face was lying on a shelf in one of those refrigerated display cases. Just between the pork rib and the lone ribeye in a black polyester foam tray. Is that her? Ethan took a few uncertain steps forward. Then he backed away, almost knocking over a nice old lady. He couldn't even muster an apology, grabbed the first thing that came to hand, and turned around to the nearest row of shelves. He tried not to run, because it would look too stupid, Ethan explained to himself as he reached the end of the row and peered around the corner. The girl was still picking out meat. Isn't that what you're doing now, stupid too? For sure it is, Ethan agreed with himself. The cold no longer burned his cheeks, and the girl seemed quite ordinary. Except she was dressed too lightly for the current weather, but that was still not considered a crime in any of the states. Ethan smiled to his own thoughts. Generally speaking, the girl was rather attractive, and her light clothing would allow for one to fully appreciate it. Her thin waist passing into a seductive curve of her hips beneath the folds of white fabric. One could make out her round buttocks.
Fun.
What?
I was asking broccoli or Brussels sprouts.
Hope stood still with 2 colorful plastic bags in her hand, looking at Ethan questioningly. He blinked several times, squinting as if he had just stepped out into the bright light from a darkened room. When did he get back to Hope? Why was he holding a bottle of Thousand Island dressing? I don't know. He was a little dizzy.
Are you alright?
Yeah, never mind. I'm sorry, I was just lost in thought. Hope tried not to look in the direction Ethan had been focusing on for so long. She really tried, but sometimes trying isn't enough, no matter how much effort you put in. At that very moment, the dark-haired girl's light white dress was floating away from the meat shelves. She must have finally made her choice.
I see.
For a moment, Ethan thought both colorful plastic bags were about to slap him in the face. But Hope just smiled and tossed the bags into the cart. Ethan heard them crunch loudly as they hit the bottom.
Well, let's take a bath. Variety is the spice of life.
They haven't bought any zucchini. Hope just never gets those zucchini. The night he had another dream about the White Room. The walls were still trembling softly in the cold light. Everything in the room, including the air, was oozing tension, anguishing in anticipation of what was about to happen. And something was really about to happen, no doubt about it. Ethan suddenly realized he was looking at the room from an odd angle. He seemed to be standing on something, but he couldn't feel anything under his feet. No supports. He tried to look down, but only saw shimmering air. He had no legs and nothing above the missing legs, as if he was not there. Or rather, he was the shimmering air, the chipped ceiling, the walls that were still trembling. He was the red sofa standing a little away from the center, and a couple of unremarkable white doors on opposite walls of the room that were not there the last time, and that should not have been there. Nothing can be done about it now. The doors have appeared, and there is nothing that can be done about it now. The light grew dim, now pulsating noticeably. It was still emanating from the room in its entirety, reflecting from the white walls, but most of all from the twin bra on the wall between the two doors that were not supposed to be there. For some reason, Ethan tried to catch the rhythm of the lights with his breath, yet he could not. There were two figures sitting on the sofa. One fair, the other dark. The dark one came into the room through one of the doors, but Ethan couldn't have guessed which one. The fair one was Hope. Hope, what are you doing here? You can't be here. You have to leave right now or something will happen. The pulse of light became faster. The dark one moved towards Hope and tucked the blonde strand of hair behind her ear. Everything was happening very slowly, as if underwater. There was something odd about the dark one. Something about her was wrong, but Ethan couldn't have guessed what. She leaned towards Hope's ear and covered her mouth with her hand, and Hope leaned towards her and listened very carefully, as if they had a mutual secret amongst themselves. Something was about to happen. They both looked at Ethan, even though Ethan wasn't there, or rather, he was nowhere, because no white wall ever existed. No white room. Then one of them smiled. The dark one's fingers slid down Hope's chin. A soft, round line. They were no longer looking at Ethan, only at each other very closely, and were slowly inhaling the lights. The dark one stroked Hope's cheek, and there was no light between them, their ajar lips as they collided. Ethan saw drops of saliva glistening on their lips. The dark one licked her lips and raised her tongue to make space for the long, black snake as it got out of her mouth. The snake swayed, tasted the air with its own tongue, and reached out to Hope. Hope closed her eyes. Now the snake was stroking her cheek, long and black, over and over again in a spiral. Always in a spiral. Hope reached for the band that covered her eyes, and the dark girl reached for her hand, and their fingers intertwined, and the light between their lips melted, as it always happened at sunset. Yet there was no snake. It was just a black ribbon, a poisonous ribbon covered in scales. The pulse of the room became faster. One of the lamps came into an eclipse. She has a number of faces. The room was contracting and expanding, quivering and floating on the suffocating waves of ecstasy. And then something happened. Ethan woke up. His breath was bubbling in his throat. The ceiling above him was flaring with immeasurable darkness, and down below his stomach he felt the searing heat. The heat was so intense, Ethan had to sneak into the bathroom, and as his old man used to say, he had to squeeze it off. And not just once, but whopping too. But then, after that, Ethan loomed over the sink and was looking at himself in the small rectangular mirror for quite a while. At some point, his lips started trembling. Ethan did not wait to see what was going on. He spat into the sink, let the water in for a while, then he turned the lights off. That was fun. Also, you didn't get me to moan. No. Ethan didn't want morning to come. He didn't want to wake up, to see a hidden grudge in Hope's eyes, to listen to the awakened silence, and to seize every opportunity to say a word to break it. But morning did come, and Ethan was in for a surprise. Apparently a package. Everything was fine. Very much so. Hope got up early to make a superior breakfast, the kind that Ethan was never able to cook, even when he really wanted to. She was talking to him. She was joking. She listed at least 10 places they would go when their schedules became more relaxed. The nightmare seemed to be over. Simply washed away down the drain with the rest of all things excess he used to have in his body. The image was so real that Ethan got completely relaxed, let his guard down, dazed by the cute nonsense, waffles with cream and delicious Turkish coffee. Then Hope asked a question.
Do you think a darker hair color would suit me?
The coffee suddenly turned solid and stuck in his throat. Ethan felt as if it wasn't coffee at all, but finely ground glass. He coughed. What? Hope put her elbows on the table and sipped from her coffee as if nothing had happened.
I was just thinking of becoming a brunette. What do you say?
I don't know. I'm fine with everything as it is. As long as you like it, I guess. Tiny pieces of glass were still scratching him from the inside. Ethan tried to clear his throat, but it didn't get much better. But why? Why were you thinking about it? Ethan struggled to speak. He felt as if he was falling into a pit, the air whistling in his ears.
Well, one has to change from time to time. Variety
is
good.
She took another sip.
Besides, I find plenty of dark hair all over the apartment. Not very long, you know, but not too short either. About this length.
Even before Hope tapped her neck with the edge of her hand, Ethan knew where the hand would stop.
And so I thought, if I go brunette, I can believe those hairs are mine.
Hope's lips stretched and the corners of her mouth turned up. But she wasn't smiling. This isn't happening. This just can't be happening. He must still be asleep. This is a dream, just a shitty dream, and it'll end. Now Ethan desperately wanted morning to come, but morning just couldn't come for the second time in a day. Hope leaned back in her chair and looked at him with her hand on the side and faked a smile smoldering on her lips. Something had to be done about all of it. Right this minute. We told the truth last time. Oh, the hairs? That's what you're talking about? I mean, I don't mind, but you sure you want to go change color just because of a delivery guy?
A delivery guy?
Yeah. Sometimes I order food. I've had a lot of dark-haired delivery guys lately.
Fascinating. And what were all those delivery guys doing in our bathtub?
I don't know. I don't know, Hope. Maybe I got distracted. Couple times, maybe. You know, if I get a call from the agency, I switch immediately. Hope listened to the explanation with an unreadable expression. Just that ghastly smile was gone. Ethan felt a bit better. Maybe the carrier was prowling around the apartment while I was distracted. God, why didn't I think of that? Maybe that's why my stuff keeps on disappearing?
Who knows?
Hope smiled bitterly.
At least we found out it wasn't a cat, huh?
Ethan felt like the skin above the collar filled with heat and began to throb. Membranes, valves, whitish films, yellow bones, innards shiny just like berry jelly, pulsating, contracting, trembling. Ethan closed his eyes involuntarily as if he could squeeze a vision out of them.
Ethan, are you okay? You look, bad.
At least there was no mockery in Hope's voice. Yes. No. Ethan leaned on the table and rubbed his face with his hand, stretching the skin. Even the valves in places where they got very close to the worn red upholstery. He clenched his teeth and slapped his cheeks. The vision finally disappeared. No, everything's not okay. Not okay at all. I'm sorry, Hope. I don't know what to do about it. And that was true.
Is there anything you want to tell me?
Ethan shook his head. If I knew what I wanted to say, I would have said it already. I should just call the police and let them sort it out. It's their job, after all. I'm tired of all this. Hope sighed.
I'm tired too, Ethan. And it's not even the end yet.
What?
It's not the end of the month. Perhaps I should start sorting things out now. Otherwise, there'll be no business for me when the paycheck arrives.
Why didn't you give me that line to redo? Hope got up slowly, as if hesitantly.
All right. I have to go. I'll be back late.
See you tonight. Hope waved her hand weakly. When the door shut behind Hope, Ethan stood still for some time, listening to the high-pitched tinnitus and thinking of nothing, his head either too light or too heavy for his body. Then he felt the small hairs on his neck standing up. Someone was looking at the back of his head. Ethan turned around slowly. I'm calling the police. Ethan spoke words loud and clear. It was a decent plan. An actually decent one, and it certainly wasn't funny in any way, and yet the girl sitting at the windowsill was silently laughing, covering white teeth with her hand, and that's where we'll leave it. See you guys next time. We're getting closer to the final ending of Selene. Don't forget to play the game. It's free on Steam right now. Support the devs. Bye, guys.